Hello and welcome everyone who is watching, or if you're watching after the fact, once Big Bad Online is done. I am Puna M, my pronouns are she, her, and you are watching the Big Bad Online panel. You made a game, now what? Find out with the rest of us. I'm going to just start over. When I say your name, please introduce yourself with the pronouns. And if you want to do like a quick spiel about what it is you're doing currently in the DDRPG realms, please feel free to do that too. But just note that at the end of the panel, you will have time to give a longer spiel about the stuff that you're doing. Great. So I will start over to Aaron. Aaron, what you doing?
Oh,
How are you?
yeah. Hi. I'm Aaron Lim. Pronouns are he, him. I am a game maker, occasional game design lecturer based in Malaysia. I make games, tabletop RPGs. I put them out on itch.io and self-fund some on Kickstarter. I've made some stuff like an Altogether Different River, What Should We Have Tomorrow, and Spectres, most recently Spectres of Broken. I also do some occasional like structural writing and stuff like that. But yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Kat, tell us about you.
Hi, I am Kat. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the host king of the podcast Sort of Symphonies, where my good, cool friends play my upcoming game, Rangers of a Broken World. And I am also the choir master of Road to Heaven, where different cool friends play a different game and are punished for it. I have both written and self-published small games and taken games to publishers and done big Kickstarters. I've been all over the scale. And these days, mostly I just write blatant fan games because I am like that.
Amazing. Kat, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Chance. Pronouns are he or they, and I make games. I've made quite a lot of games. It turned out when I looked at my bookcase today. I've run Ecstasis games with my partner since 2020. I also freelance for various different RPG companies, and I have the best day job in the world because I'm a producer at Rowan Rook and Deckard. Coolest game maker ever.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very cool. As previously stated, I am Bruna M. My pronouns are she, her. I am one half of Weave Games with my partner, Arman, who is hopefully watching this panel and saying cool things about me in the chat. Who knows? We have made Love is on the Cards, which is a two-player game about making your own holiday rom-com, inserting yourself in stories which don't ordinarily consider people like you or your lived experience. We have also made A Stitch in Time, which is about rescuing places that have been lost because no one tells their story anymore by telling their story through writing letters to one another. Thank you for joining us today. We are basically going to talk about what do we do when we make games and then we want other people to know that we made the games. That's the basic premise of this panel. Did I just suggest it to the nice big bad people so that I could get extended office hours? Maybe. Who's to say? So what I would like all of you to do is pick one of the games that you've made, and we will just answer a bunch of questions about them. You can also draw from other experiences, but I want to sort of go through your thought process of how you went about putting the game out in the world for one particular game. If we can stick to the topic, we will find out. So, does everybody have a game that they've made in mind?
Yeah.
Iffy. Borna,
Oh boy.
hard to say.
Oh, already the vote's been
Just
wrong.
for that,
Oh, no.
I want Kat
Okay.
to start.
Hard to say. Made so many. Like, now you're asking a lot of me.
Did I say like?
Yeah, you did.
Oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
Oh no, I did not read the assignment.
No. Okay. Well,
I'm
the game you've made.
Yeah, because as I've mentioned, I'm just going to kind of briefly, there are kind of three ways to release a game. You get someone else to do it, you do it yourself big, or you do it yourself small. I've done all three of these things. I think I'm going to go with the one that I did myself big, which is Blazing Him, my transparent Symphogear fan game. Watch Symphogear if you have a tolerance for horny anime. It's very good, but it is way too horny. Anyway, so I made a Lumen game about my favorite horny anime. And I fell enough in love with it that I wanted to do an AP, a limited run AP. 13 episodes. It's anime inspired. Obviously, I want to do a 13 episode actual play podcast. Yes. I want to pay my cast. I want to pay my sound designer because I have a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful sound designer. Kathleen is my right hand. I adore her and I must give her money. And that's so what I ended up doing was making the zine, getting print copies, and then having those as backer rewards for what was effectively a Kickstarter for the actual play podcast. But as a result, it's actually currently, I think, like my most popular game, aside from like the Carta system. Like that was the one that I did all the big Twitter pushes for. That was the one that because I really wanted to make a podcast about it.
And so when you initially came up with the game, so you have a bunch of text, you've made a bunch of notes, you've made the game. Did you play test it first? Were there iterations of it, or did you just make it and you were like, "This is perfect. It must go out into the world"?
Yeah. This is something that I have to apologize. Here's my formal apology to everyone who's ever played Blazing Him. I did a play test with my friends, at which point I realized that my friends were not taking virtually any damage. So I cut everyone's HP in half. And I've since been informed that it's an incredibly lethal game, and whoopsie
Skill issue.
It's very rocket taggy. There's a lot of ways to avoid getting hit, but when something nails you, you are fully in the dirt. And that I'm fine with that, to be honest. So like I snagged some friends, I play tested, I fiddled with the numbers a little bit. And the other thing was that I was playing the game consistently through the process of casting this AP. I did an open casting call. I played a lot of test games with people who were candidates to be the cast, which also gave me an insight into how this game works, what kind of moments this game produces, what kind of players kind of excel at this game, and how they express that excellence within this game's rules. So, like, I didn't iterate a lot on it after that first play test, but part of that is because it's a Lumen game, and Lumen games are pretty bare bones. Like, if you've got the fundamental number ratios down for a Lumen game, you're not really going to be able to break them too hard.
Challenge accepted, says somebody on the internet.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Like, it's possible, but like, if you focus on the ratios, Lumen's pretty easy. Okay,
so I think that from the outset, when you said, you know, I've done the thing, I've made something that went big.
Yeah,
I think that's probably what is stuck in viewers' heads because maybe they have this cool idea that they want to go big with. Mm-hmm. So, did you when you, assuming that people watching don't know the story, when you made the game, when you wanted to crowdfund for the AP, did you market it as how did you go about marketing it? What was the logic to it? Was it like, look at me, I am a game designer, people know who I am, it is something that I'm associating with my name? Was it something where you said, this system's really fun, I know a lot of you like this, here you go, another thing, cool system, yay? What was the logic behind how you made it go big?
3 things. One of them was, at that point, I had already I had a couple bona fides in AP. I had a couple award noms and a couple award wins in the field of actual play. So I had enough people who knew that I knew what I was doing when I was making a podcast. The second is that because this is a fan game, I leaned very hard on my points of reference. The points of reference for Blazing Him are Symphogear, which no one has seen, but everyone who has seen loves it, unless they're allergic to horny. Asterisk, lots of people are, that's valid. But and Neon Genesis Evangelion, which a lot more people have seen and kind of means a lot to a lot of people. And so even just by telling people like this is kind of like Evangelion by way of Symphogear, people know what I'm talking about and they're interested if they're at all interested in either of those media properties. The third is that I very much wear my traumas and my various mental illnesses. I have so many, and I love them all equally on my sleeve. And so, Blazing Him, because the concept involves angels coming from heaven to massacre us all, I was able to lean on kind of the religious trauma aspect and kind of the taboo, very blasphemous concept in a way that made the game seem kind of exciting. Like it's a mech series about like angels coming to kill us all. That's very, and you fight back by singing. It's very impassioned and very kind of teenage religious trauma is, I guess, the third tack I took. So if you're going to be doing it yourself big, if you're getting someone else to do it, they've usually got someone on board who knows how to market. But even if you're doing it yourself small, identifying what your game is, not only to you, but what it could be to others, is a huge step. Because that's how you're going to quickly and effectively communicate to people what the experience of buying and playing your game is going to be.
Perfect. That is an incredible answer. Well done, Kat.
Yay!
Who knew a person who had a podcast would be good at answering stuff on the panel? Who could have predicted? So, speaking of knowing what your game is and finding the right tags, I feel like as someone who encourages and facilitates a lot of playtesting of a lot of games, I feel like, Aaron, I really want to know what you use to tag as tags or as themes that you said, this is what my game does. What was the game that you were going to tell us about, and how'd you sell it to people?
Right. Yeah. So I should mention, I guess, like the other thing that I do other than like mini games, just for context for why Purna phrased the question in that way. I run a fortnightly playtesting meetup online called Playtest Zero. So we playtest every other Tuesday and every other Thursday/Friday, depending on like what time zones you're in. And we do short playtests. So each playtest session is about an hour, and because we try to get through like multiple playtests in a session, so like at least 2 to 3 playtests in one session, so each session can't be too long, just so that we can get more done in a session. Which kind of like pushes playtest to like a specific form of playtest. You can't playtest the full game, you playtest portions of the game, or sometimes we just get together and like talk through like, hey, I have this idea, I'm not 100% sure how to like execute on this. Here are like some core ideas that I want to like bounce around, just like have some brainstorm, not even brainstorming, just like to I think developers
just to bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah. Programmers tend to call this like rubber ducking, where you talk to a rubber duck. You imagine you're talking to a rubber duck in the bath to like put your ideas out. Yeah. So that's the context for that. And we are not very like formal in the sense of like, we don't ask people to please submit a pitch before and fill up a form to like figure out who's gonna play test tonight. It's a bit looser than that, but like having a succinct pitch and a succinct way of like getting your ideas across helps a lot, even in like playtesting, even without talking about marketing, say, right? Just like getting people to like invest into like what the idea of your game is and give good feedback based on that. Because like if you don't get across your idea, like the pitch of the game clearly, and then you might get feedback that's like trying to push your game in like ways that you weren't intending to anyways. Not like yeah, and then that's quote unquote bad feedback, right? Because like I'm so sorry, like thank you for like investing time and like telling me this, but like I'm just not gonna do anything about it because like that's not what this game is about. Sorry I didn't tell you about that earlier, which is why you gotta practice like pitching your games even from the playtesting stage, right? Like if I know people who are making games might be like daunted or like um uh, uh
Maybe
be afraid
discouraged.
of like the idea
Yeah.
of like marketing. But I think like putting together a succinct pitch for your game is like really important just for like playtesting and development as well, because it helps you like to figure out what the core idea of your game is. What's your game's pillars? What's the thing that would excite people to play the game? And so I don't think that I'm good at it. I just uh, try a few different ways. Like I think I'll probably be talking about Spectres of Brocken just because that's the one most recently that I've done. So it's fresh on my mind of like things that I've done on it. I refined that pitch, and like interestingly, that game started as a completely different game. In the sense of like the pitch evolved from like initially it was a game about um, uh, like how mechs can be a representative of like inner character. So like you have a mech game, but it's actually more about like the pilot, and like the mech is just a reflection of like who the pilot is, right? Like so someone who is hot-headed, tempestuous would pilot the red mech that goes really fast, right? That was the initial idea of the game, and then as I developed the game and like continued playtesting and developing the game, that pitch changed to like, hey, this is a game where you play as like young pilots getting to know each other in an academy, and then years later you come back together and you are in like a war in your own custom mechs, like fighting each other, not knowing like that you're even fighting your old friends, right? So the evolution of that pitch what came about from like playtesting and like figuring out what the game was, and also trying to figure out how to talk about it to get people interested in playing, right? And a lot of that is also like trying to figure out like you got to balance between like evocative language and clarity. Um, like I think one of the taglines I had tried on earlier is that this is a game about like the tyranny of time. But it doesn't tell you anything about what the game is actually about. Like thematically, it works in that like if you know like the game already, then it's like, oh yeah, yes, it's a game about the tyranny of time, but like in what context? Who knows? Like it's a nice phrase, but like sometimes you just gotta, like you said, call a spade, right? It's like this thing digs ditches and like brains people. Like those are the two things you use spades for, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's the context of like if you're talking about like refining like a pitch or like figuring out that's something you should figure out fairly early, because sometimes you have to pitch the game to yourself. That's the one of the really important things about like refining a pitch is you have to we talk about like liking the games that you make, right? Sometimes like it can feel like a slog if you've been working on a game for a while. You might lose motivation, or like if you keep talking about the game and like sometimes for whatever reason no one's biting, right? Like okay, the playtest didn't happen, right? Like your playtest group like fell apart, or like you're just like, oh, we don't play games together anymore, or like it couldn't get enough people to like love the game the way you do. Then you got to pitch it to yourself. You got to keep pitching it to yourself. Why are you still making this? What is exciting you about like putting it out there and still trying to find people to love the game the way you do, right? So you got to pitch it to yourself as well to keep yourself excited and keep yourself focused on like what you want the game to be.
Would you, I recognize what I'm asking and what the likely response is going to be, but would you publish every version of the game? Like, as in, this is how this has evolved. Would you make all of that process public, or would you say, no, I'm going to keep my work in progress to a small trusted group of people or a small trusted group of playtesters before putting it out there?
Uh, yes and no, right? There's
yeah.
no right answer to this. It depends on the project and it depends on the community and like kind of like what your goals are for a project as well. Like there are like for Spectres, I had to create a new itch page because and like I just renamed all the different versions of Spectres, like different subtitles. Like full cover is the original version that no is like depreciated, so to speak. But if you want, you can go back and like play that version of the game. That version of the game is still fun. It's not the one that I quote unquote finished. But I tend to do a thing where I like leaving like old versions of the game up and like look, here's a if you want to look at it you can, but like you shouldn't. But it's fun for myself and even with the final version of Spectres, I'm still working on it. This is the one thing from the Kickstarter that I know that I'm very late on, and I will be very late on, is the designer commentary version of Spectres. I've done designer commentary for previous version of my game called An Altogether Different River as well, and I love doing that because it's fun to like kind of like be able to like talk about the process without you having to read like 7 versions of the game. So it's like a way to like have the best of both worlds, so to speak. It's like, look, if you want a context of like what this game is, could be here's a version with some of that context, without
Director's
needing
cut.
you to put, yeah. Well, it's not even director's cut. It's like commentary, literally. And it depends. Like, I don't think you should do that for every project, right? And I don't think you should do that depending on like what your goals are as a creator, as a designer, right? I like to do that just because I personally like to see all versions of games, right? I love, you know,
You want
I
to
love
know
to
how
see
the
like,
sausage is made.
yeah. As a designer, obviously, I'm interested in the design process, but like some people aren't, and like you risk confusing people, right? Like I had to like, I cleaned up a bunch of my itch pages, took out some of the old versions to like just like I just made them like downloadable, or like I'll zip them into a file and say like, look, if you want the old versions, they're in there. And I'm like, don't look at that. But like it's good for me to have that sometimes because I can go back through and like look, like sometimes you plant seeds for yourself later on, right? Like you cut mechanics and like go digging through the graveyard, go digging through the compost, the graveyard, to see what new things have sprouted in there. But I don't think that's right for every project. I especially if you are definitely trying to do this commercially. I do not. Please do not listen to any of my advice if you want to make games commercially.
Official advice: don't do this for money.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you want to make products, like making games as products is very different from making games as game design things. Not to say that they are completely different, but you need a different set of skills, right? Like being able to like figure out how to like print games and not lose money, ship games and not lose money. That's a whole different set of skills than like game design, right? As I'm sure like Chan as a producer, you will know. So it's like, if you want to make games just to make games, you can do stuff like putting all your different versions online. But if you're trying to like market your game so that people don't get confused, wait, which version of the game am I supposed to be playing here? Wait, you look at this, is this the first edition, the 1.5 edition, the 1.8 edition, or like the ghost edition that was only released for like 24 hours before the author like changed something? Like, no, they want to like, look, this is the latest thing, this is the latest right thing. Get that, play that, right? Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So what we have gotten from that is know what your game is, take your time in playtesting it and figuring out what it is. If it takes a long time and you get kind of lose some motivation, lose some steam, try to pitch it back to yourself, and don't lose heart. Hope, maybe that's something I'm just putting into the mix. But as someone who has not had to do this for a long time, can you tell? So speaking of creating games that you want a physical form of, Kent, what game are you going to tell us about today?
Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to talk about my first game, my smallest game, and the game that annoyingly, because it's the first one, is still probably the most successful one, which is a solo. Yeah, let me tell you, the imposter syndrome does not like that. You were good in 2020. You should have stopped.
Oh
So the
no.
first game that I
Oh
ever made
no.
was called Final Girl, and it's a solo journaling slasher horror that uses Chris Bassett's Wretched and Alone system, and it's quite fun. And you probably die at the end. Yay! Um, and I think this one has done pretty well for a couple of reasons, and one of them is a branding error. There is a board game that is called Final Girl, and for the record, for clarity, and I want to say this on the internet, I was first. I beat that board game by like 18 months. Um, but the people who made the board game have spent a lot on marketing, and now people are like, "Oh, a game called Final Girl. I heard that's good. I'll buy that." Um, but even without that, it does well because, like Aaron said, it's a really super simple pitch, right? It's a slasher horror. Everybody knows what you're going to get from a slasher horror. If you like slasher movies, you will like this game, basically. It got yeeted out of the nest, almost unplay tested. Like, I'd played a couple of versions, but there's only so wrong you can go with a journaling game. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And it's just kind of quietly ticked along. And this is releasing a game for people who don't like marketing, don't like talking to people, and don't have any powerful friends, right? Um, it just got out there. It went up on itch.io, and it sold steadily because it's got a very striking cover and it's got a very easy pitch. And over a few months, it generated enough money and like a little trickle of sales that I could print it, and that was really exciting. Print is a mistake. Books were a bad idea, actually, guys.
Get wrecked, Gutenberg.
Right? That fucking guy, if I meet him in the afterlife, we are going to have words. Because there are two ways to print, right? There's like super easy digital printing, which is what I did for Final Girl, which is where you go to a big print company like Mixum and you go, run off 50 copies, they'll probably look fine. Or there is offset printing, which is like professional printing, which is what all of your big role-playing games use. And they are beautifully colored and they're very, very complicated. And you have to order like 1,000 copies at once. But I suspect we'll get into that at some point. But for Final Girl, I did like a little digital print run of 50 copies and I sold it at conventions. And people went, oh, yeah, it's pretty, I'll buy it. And then I did 100 and I sold them at other conventions. And then I got bored of doing all of the work myself and started just cold emailing retailers and going, look, I've got this game, do you want to carry it? And horrifyingly, they said yes. And it turned out it's just that easy. You just say, I've got a game, do you want it? And they go, I guess, we'll try. Maybe someone will buy it. And now I have to ship boxes of this sodding zine to Indie Press Revolution every 3 months. And now I have to think about shipping and logistics instead of marketing. So you can do it that way. You just have to decide what you hate more, whether it's talking to people or filling in spreadsheets.
Decide what problems you want.
Exactly.
Just aim,
Choose your own
for the
adventure.
problems you
They're
want.
all horrible.
Yes. So since we are sort of that half an hour mark, and we've had so many gems of wisdom already, what I'm going to do now is going to go to the secret game designer advice section. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that you all have had these 3 ideas. I'm going to ask Chance first in reverse order. Pick a number from 1 to 3. What door would you like?
I'll open door number 3, please.
Okay, so I think you'll like this. Okay, so what you basically have to do is all of you are going to get this random thing assignment, if you will. You have to say what you would do to make this game. This is the game that you thought of. What are you going to do to put it out in the world? Just general advice that you would give, because that's where everyone starts, right? You have the idea, maybe you write what it is down. Yeah, I'm going to stop over explaining. So door number 3 says, social media has collapsed. Usernames change at random, tagging or finding anyone is impossible. You have a document with a text of what you're hoping is the first volume of many that uses your own homebrew system. How do you go about getting buy-in for the system? You have 5 minutes. I'm going to tell the others what is going on also behind their doors, so that you get a second to think about this as well. And then everybody gets 5 minutes to talk about the chaos they would wreak upon the world. Kat, what door do you want? 1 or 2?
What? No.
Okay. You are new to professional game design. Think, if you will,
Brand new soft baby.
Hark into a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've made an amazing game.
Good job.
About how all succulents are spies.
I went to the conservatory and saw a lot of them today, so that's really kind of, yeah, I can get into that mindset.
Mm-hmm. So you have the text of all succulents are spies.
Yes.
I will come back to you to ask what you do next. What kind of game do you make it? Do you make physical copies? Do you play test it? Do you put it out in the world?
Yeah. Okay.
That's all you have. This idea. Okay. Erin, you are left with door number 2. Sorry about that. Here we are. Okay. You have made a card game called Objectification, which lets you take the ability to connect to a network like the interwebs from smart gadgets and give it to other objects. For example, this orange is now connected to the internet. The way the game is set up, gameplay really benefits from physical components. It can be cards, it can be anything. What do you do next? So, you all have your doors, you all have fun, burgeoning game design ideas and different levels of detail, different sizes of text. If these were the game ideas you had, what would you do next? Put it out there in the world, drawing upon the wealth of knowledge you all have and the very useful advice that you've already given out into the world, my favorite of which has to be choose the problem that you want in the future. Still, who wants to go first?
Lorna, it's a good wisdom.
It is, yes, I agree. Who wants to go first and sort of talk through what they might do?
I'm ready. If neither of you two are, I'm ready.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Beautiful. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I am a self-taught layout artist. I taught myself how to do it when my friends and I made a game in college, and they decided I would be king of the manual because I was the English major. I have forgiven them for this officially on the books, I guess. But so the result is that, like, one of the first things I do is I start thinking about design because I do my own layout. If you do not do your own layout, do not despair. There are templates you can find. There are guides you can find. You can. The point is, what is it going to look like? And honestly, this project is Succulents Are Spies is screaming Kickstarter to me. And the reason it's screaming Kickstarter is because it would just be the cutest thing in the world to have little plant pots as backer rewards. So the next thing that I would do is I would look at crafters, specifically crafters that do work with resin or ceramic. And I would see if anybody would be interested in partnering with me for something like this and find out what their rates would look like. This is also when I would estimate the price of the book, because once I do layout, I know how many pages it is. I know what size it is. I can estimate a print run's cost and start budgeting a Kickstarter. For dice, I think, honestly, if you were to do a Kickstarter of a game revolving around succulents that had custom, like, you know that gray, blue, green color that agave are? That really specific, dreamy cactus green? I think that, like, that and a custom plant pot would be candy to people. And I'm not normally a Kickstarter guy, but this project, I'm feeling like I'd be reaching out to people for for goodies and treats. The other thing is that because this is a game that is about like a thing that exists in our real world, that means that I can find art on Wikimedia Commons. I can find old botanical sketches on the Smithsonian, all of which will be public domain. And with a little bit of doodling and a graphic design program, I can make stickies. And I do not have to hire an artist if I'm not comfortable doing the art. So, like, yeah, my brain is immediately like, oh, this is a really merchable concept that Purna has given me. So that's kind of, my next step is definitely going to be to just, like, put a budget together and see what happens.
Love it. Love that journey for you. And please send me a commission when you make Succulents Are Spies, the Kickstarter.
Not interested.
So how long would you say you would estimate from the point at which this brilliant idea has occurred to you to starting the Kickstarter, and then from the Kickstarter as an estimate to getting the backers there?
I mean, I have ADHD. So sometimes from the moment a thing occurs to me to having a finished manual that I can put on itch.io is like 2 days. And sometimes it is months, and sometimes it is over a year, and sometimes it is 2 days. There is no predicting it. That's just how my brain is. But a Kickstarter, typically you want to have your budget in place at least a couple months before. You kind of want to start gathering your assets. You want to start gathering the things you want to make the page look pretty. Again, like, I'm going to be scraping things like Wikimedia Commons and the Smithsonian, but I still want to noodle with them a little bit. And I use GIMP, but you could use like Photoshop or whatever it is you use. As GIMP is free, but like, you want to get your graphics in line. You want to get your tiers in line. You always want to have a tax buffer. You want to have a shipping buffer. So there's a lot of math to do before you do a Kickstarter. I always like give yourself a couple months just to make absolutely sure you nail everything. A Kickstarter, you shouldn't run it for longer than a month. You can do shorter if you're doing a small project and you're feeling gutsy, but you can't, like, longer is not good. And then honestly, it depends on what you're giving, how long it takes to get out. Zine month projects, for example, are often for projects that are pretty much finished or could be finished within a span of a week. And then you just wait for, in my case, Mixam, because I'm in Canada and that's the printer of choice here, to ship you a box of zines. You ship them out to people. Bob's your uncle, Sally's your aunt. You can have Zine month from concept to book in someone's hands in 2 months. But if you're doing what I'm talking about for Succulents Are Spies with the merchables, that's going to depend on how many people are backing at the reward tier where they get the cute pot. How long does my potter friend that I found, like, I messaged a potter on Etsy who does some TTRPG stuff. Like, how long does it take for them to get it done? Like, what about that is, the more physical stuff you are giving out, the longer you should expect this to take, is a general rule of thumb.
All excellent advice. Now I think I will go to Aaron, because Kent chose an entire system where social media has gone to hell. So Aaron, objectification, the game, potentially with physical components that are not just the object.
Yeah.
What
so
would you do?
So two immediates. The first one is figure out if there's a better name for the game, because objectification is going to be tricky.
I feel personally attacked, Aaron. You mean?
It's not very SEOable, you know.
Or too SEOable.
I think the second thing that I would do, again, it really really depends on your context, depending on what you want to do, what you want to do, not just for a game, but like long term as a creator. Like, do you want to like do the, like I think what Chant said. Do you want do you want to like be a logistics person? Do you want to be a marketing person? So it's because and echoing what Kat says as well, said as well, physical things that aren't just like PDFs or like booklets are a pain. Like I think if you look through most of the, like especially like the video game Kickstarters, where they often like fall down is when they offer like physical merch that isn't like, especially if they're not, especially if they're custom, right? If it's not just a simple thing where it's like a T-shirt or stickers, the complexity balloons fast. So I'm very familiar with like board game Kickstarters because that's where I learned to like use Kickstarters like for kickstarting board games, and I think recently it has gotten better, right? Like in the last 5 years, like everyone's got it down. It's okay. They know like how long things are gonna take. They know what things need to be prepared ahead of time. But like in the early days, like in the 2010s, early 2010s, 2012, 2013, like so many like board game Kickstarters were delayed. Or I know famously there was one that bankrupted the creator because they horribly miscalculated how bad international shipping would be. Um, so I would be very very careful about like figuring out physical components and like the complexity of physical components. So the second thing that I would do is can I can I design this game in a way where I don't have to use physical components? That like because for me, like for my context, right? Like I am in Malaysia, and for like for one, like my access to Kickstarter is already like a loophole because like I lived in Australia for like 15 years, so I was able to get uh, access to Kickstarter because I have an Australian bank account and I still have that. Whereas like if I was just in Malaysia, I would not have access to Kickstarter at all, so I would not even have that option. And in Southeast Asia, the number of people, the number of companies that you could pitch to for like if you wanted to find a publisher instead of doing it yourself, um, are very limited, and the chances of you doing that are very limited unless you're able to travel, and you need a certain amount of capital to do that, right? Like I think even if you travel regionally to like say the Taiwan board game market or like the Tokyo the Japanese ones. Those aren't as expensive, but like travel is still going to be expensive. Like let's not talk about like the US because there's visa problems. We talked about this right before the panel started, right? Um, and yeah, so my instinct as like someone who's like small is like, can I redesign it such that it doesn't need those components? And if it does, my instinct would be like to try and like offload a lot of that risk to like try and find a publisher for it rather than try and do it myself, just because I know personally I don't want to deal with the headache, and like I know like there's going to be customs problems. Like even shipping books is easy because most of the times are customs exempt, but like once you start adding dice, once you start adding cards, comes under a whole different category of like customs, and it's a bigger headache, and like I would prefer not to do it personally, right? So I would try and like find a publisher. A lot of people are able to take pictures online nowadays, so the next step would be try and put together like an online pitch document and an online pitch demo, like whether tabletop simulator or playing cards or whatever it is. Just try and pitch that, so that I don't have to deal with that headache. There's a whole separate headache of like finding and pitching publishers, but I know we are like running low on time, and I want to make sure that Chant gets to speak, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Chant, social media has collapsed. What'd you do?
Good news, everyone. It's already happened. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Imagine if you will.
Yeah, imagine if you will. It's today. This is what we're doing after we hang up on this call. Pony, you've asked me a question that I know the answer to, and I hate the answer because the answer is you're going to have to talk to people, folks. Um, if
Oh
social
no.
media doesn't exist, you're going to have to get people organically talking about your games, and eventually you're going to have to build them a space where they can come and do that. And it's going to suck because you're going to have to interact with the public. And yeah, some of you are very charismatic people. A lot of you probably are. I'm not. Um, but here's what I would do if I was a professional. So there's no internet and there's no social media. There are two things that you can do, right? You can start shopping your game around in real life, and this is actually kind of more fun because the internet's a weird place, real life less weird. If you've got conventions near you, if you've got local game stores near you, if you've got game clubs near you, take your game, even if it's an alpha build, even if it's like the most basic, simple thing, and just get it in front of as many people as you physically can. Every time they play your game, every time they see a copy of your game, you need to be getting them to somewhere on the internet where you can tell them more about your game. If you can get them on a mailing list that you own, that's perfect. The best form of marketing, now that the internet has collapsed, is having a mailing list of your own. Ideally, you did this 4 years ago. If you didn't, that's what this exercise is. Heads up, I didn't. So you've got your physical branches. You've also got, what did I say here? I wrote it in silver pen, which is stupid. You are going to want to make your game very easily available online, which means, again, probably an Ashcan or a playtest edition, which is not finished, but is the earliest build that you can show to people as soon as possible so that you've got time to build and develop some noise about it before you're ready to start selling it to people. And coming back to what Aaron said earlier about playtesting, the brilliant thing about a playtest edition or an Ashcan edition is people love to be critics, right? People love to buy into a game by occasionally telling you what they like, but often telling you what they think is not hitting or their experience of playing the game. So you can really generate a lot of conversation by letting people do that and letting them in on that design space with you. And if you can swallow your ego, again, not me, you can build up a really good base of players and supporters and other people who will talk about your game for you. And that ultimately is what's going to get your game out there in the world without you having to rely on billionaire-owned social media networks that would rather platform Nazis than independent creators.
Choose the problems you want to see in the world.
Always choose the problems.
Choose the problem you want to be in the world. It's all
Can I
it's all
throw
good.
out a real wild card answer though? Because that was the sensible answer. The wild card answer for
Please
me who
do.
doesn't like people, you may have gathered, or at least doesn't like interacting with them. Make a weird cryptic AR game. Honestly,
Oh,
seed bits and pieces about your game. Write unfiction about it. Write weird little Reddit posts about it. Let people chase it and follow it through the internet. And it will take time and it's risky. But if it catches on, then you look like a really cool, smart individual who's doing something different and creative. And you've never had to run a Discord.
wow.
I don't think we can top that. So we're just going to go to outros. People just say who you are and what you want to
Mastermind
promote.
behavior. Wow, loving it.
Let's go with the mastermind. Chance, tell people where to find you or don't. And
Don't
what you want to
find me.
promote.
Do not proceed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if any of what I said made any sense to you and you're interested in occasionally seeing what games I yeet out into the world, follow me as Ecstasis Games on the aforementioned broken social media. Also, you should check out Hollows, a game which is boss fights done right. Coming to you soon from coming to you soon from Rowan Rook and Deckard. Also, if you have made a game and you would like to try pitching it to a publisher, go to rowanrookanddeckard.com and look for our Grumpy Guide to Pitching. Those
Yay,
things may be
Grumpy
useful to
Guide.
you.
Huzzah. Aaron, tell people where to find you.
Yeah. I've been Aaron. I continue to be Aaron. You can find me on social media, broken social media again, as at Aaron Lime on most things. Twitter, Blue Sky, co-host. I try to. I do have a mailing list that I update occasionally when I do stuff. You can find that at like perfect-whole.ghost.io. And more importantly, if you want to join us for our playtest zero sessions, send me a DM on social media or like email me. Email me at like aaron.gf.lim@gmail.com. I'll send you. We don't post the link publicly just because we don't want to deal with spam bots. But like if you want to join us, we do. Our next session is this coming week, Tuesday, and Thursday/Friday. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Aaron, Kat, where do
What?
people find you?
What? Hi, I am Kat. You can find me and my games and my podcasts at peachgardengames.com, or you can find me at peachgardengames.itch.io. I am more active on Busky than on Twitter because of the aforementioned Nazis, but you can find me on both of those at Catling Gun. That's CATLING gun. Pew 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 pew.
And I am Buna M. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on it as Buna Makes Things .io, on Twitter /X/ whatever it's called by the time this panel finished up, as Buna Writes. I have enjoyed asking you all strange questions and getting strange answers in response. Thank you so much for being on this panel. There's so much to say about this topic. It's ridiculous. Maybe we will be able to expand on it in other fora. But for now, thank you so much for joining us for this panel, whether you're watching it live or after the fact. And please support Big Bad, whether it's the in-person con or the online version. They're great. Everybody's great. Thank you for watching. Bye now.
Bye, Z's.
Bye.